Hello, and welcome to this episode of The Genderly Show, and thank you for being here with me. My name is Eden Hare. This is the second part of a 2-episode series on gender dysphoria. In the first episode, I introduced what gender dysphoria is and the criteria for a diagnosis for both children and adults. In this episode, we're going to talk about treating gender dysphoria and what we can do to alleviate some of the anxiety our friends, family, and ourselves experience with this condition. So, let's get started. Okay, so really, how does one get diagnosed with gender dysphoria? Therapy. Plain and simple. You need to bring it up with your doctor, your family doctor, do some research, find a therapist in the area where you live which specializes in gender dysphoria and LGBTQ issues. Because, as we heard, right, the gender dysphoria is a specific diagnosis in the whatever it is, the DSM, right, the Diagnostic Manual for Statistical Mental Disorders or something like that, right? I don't remember, and I'm not going to go back and look it up, but it's associated with a mental health issue. So, bearing in mind that there are other mental health issues that come out from this, stress over time is not just bad for your mental health, it's bad for your physical health. Depression, anxiety, all these things, which ultimately can create significant emotional and significant physical issues. So you need to have a doctor help you. The therapists want to understand your history. I mean, if you walk in and tell them, I think I have gender dysphoria, they're going to want to immediately dive into the history. If you walk in and say to them what I did, I don't know why I'm here, I have a problem, I'm not sure what it is, yada, 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 and then, slowly start talking about it. And as you go over history, how you behaved as a kid, what you liked, what you didn't like, who your friends were, how did you socialize, et cetera, et cetera. That starts to fill in blanks for them, right? It becomes important to help identify were there traumas, were there other things that take place? What's the root of your anxiety? What's the root of your depression, et cetera, et cetera. So, I walked into my therapist's office earlier this year. This is 2022. I walked into my therapist's office earlier this year and said to him, I bought a bra this past weekend. And he said to me, there's more to being a woman than wearing a bra. And I said, of course there is. And I know that. But when I put it on, it feels so completely natural. Like it has always should have been there. My anxiety level goes down. I feel better about me. Now, ultimately, my anxiety level also went up because I was afraid of being caught, but I could at least distinguish the fact that there was a different type of anxiety. I felt better for that one simple little thing. One of the big challenges that all those of us with gender dysphoria have is that we have different triggers. What triggers me one day may be different than what triggers me the next day. It may be different than what triggers others in terms of their stress and their anxiety level about themselves and the incongruence, the incompatibility with their assigned sex. It's these multitude of different ways that gender dysphoria can manifest itself is a problem. So for me, as I put it to my therapist, one day, it was my woefully inadequate breasts. And then another day, it's facial hair. And then another day, it's my voice. And then another day, it's my body structure. And then another day, it's, my genitals. It's different. And I found that as I have addressed one issue, it gets replaced with something else. This is a part of what makes this challenging. Just like when two people fall down and break their legs, the breaks may be different, but the treatment is typically the same. You immobilize the break and lots of rest, some pain management, right? Until the break is healed, right? The treatment for gender dysphoria is a little bit different. The therapist and the patient need to figure out what are those triggers, and how can they work together to reduce the patient's anxiety and stress and depression through alternate ways. And for example, one of the things that my therapist did with me was teach me how, when I was feeling super high anxiety, really, really anxious, not really feeling like I could cope with whatever the situation was, to be able to sit down and close my eyes and envision a place. Now, it was a manufactured place, but a place where I could feel calm. And I found that I could very quickly get to my safe place after a little bit of practicing with my therapist. And it was a place where I could just feel the anxiety drain away and then come back to whatever it was that I was working with. But not all transgender people experience gender dysphoria, but that doesn't mean that their gender identity is wrong. So some cisgender people experience gender dysphoria, typically when people misgender them. So the woman who has a slightly deeper or slightly more masculine sounding voice pulls up to the drive-through window or drive-through and says to the person on the other end of the speaker, "I'd like a quarter pounder with cheese." And the other person says, "Okay, sir, thank you very much." And that cisgender person can be annoyed, feel upset, be angry about the fact that they were just called sir. That's on the very low end of the scale. That's gender dysphoria. You are uncomfortable about how you are addressed. Gender dysphoria, sorry folks, it just does not go away like a headache. It will eventually get to the point where you need help, and don't ignore it. I did that. Don't ignore it. It's a lot easier now to ask for help than it was in the 70s and even the 80s and the 90s. It was a lot easier. I talked about medical stuff. We don't need to look at the medical stuff right away, and we really shouldn't. There are specific timelines to adhere. Go look up WPATH, which is the globally accepted standard of care for transgender people, and it describes when certain medical things are necessary and the timelines when those things should be done. So, for example, let's talk about my particular case. Male to female, you need to be on hormone replacement therapy for 12 months, at least 12 months, before a surgeon who is following WPATH in your insurance carrier, if you're lucky enough to have it covered by your insurance, will allow you to go through breast augmentation. You need to be on hormone therapy and living as a woman. So you need to be up, but you need to be on hormone therapy for at least 2 years before you can go through or gender reassignment surgery. But those are farther down the road for most people, and not every transgender person will want to go through one or the other or any of them. Simply changing the way they look, the way they interact with people socially, etc., and the way that they're treated can be enough. Even before we get to HRT and the medical side of things, there are things that we can do to help alleviate our gender dysphoria with friends, family, the social situations, work, etc. We can choose a name and pronouns that are more reflective of who we are. So, for example, for me, I went from Chris to Eden. And I said I would prefer I want she and her pronouns instead of he and his pronouns. You can start out with people that you really don't know. Internet chat groups, support groups, etc., where you can actually go and express who you are in a safer environment before you actually, make the leap of coming out to your friends and family. Being positive about you. Looking at yourself in the morning and getting to that point where you can turn around and say, I love you for who you are. I am a man. I am a woman, whichever the case may be. And I love you for who you are. I love you for who I am. I'm positive about me. Wear clothes that align with how you feel, how you are. So wear the clothes that match your gender. Use makeup to create a more masculine or a more feminine look. use garments or prosthetics to help change your body structure, your body shape. Padded bras, binders to reduce your breast size, packers, breast forms, etc. Right? There's all kinds of different ways that we can use to help with our body structure. And ultimately, eventually get to the point where you're going to ask your friends and family, community members, coworkers to refer to you in ways that are more reflective of who you are. Commonly referred to as coming out, letting everybody know this, right? And then eventually updating your legal documents, you're doing a legal name change, doing a legal gender change, and medical care. Your hormone therapy, top surgery, bottom surgery, et cetera, et cetera. But, and all those things don't have to be done in the order in which I've said it. There's many, many, many different variations which may be different or more appropriate for the specific situation that you're in. I know that this has been a lot of information presented here. Gender dysphoria is a very complex topic, and a lot has been written about it. You can find a multitude of articles on the internet written about gender dysphoria. The really good ones tend to be more medically focused, where they actually spend more time talking about the emotional challenges of gender dysphoria, the physical challenges of gender dysphoria. The social ones tend to talk about, just like mine, just like what I've been doing here with this podcast, is talking about our unique experiences. And those are good. They can be self-affirming, right? Or they can be affirming to, our particular situation. Or they may turn around and say, that's not me. I mean, I've listened to podcasts and read stuff and said that person's view of gender dysphoria or their experience with gender dysphoria is definitely not mine. It doesn't match up. And that's perfectly okay. So to finish up this podcast, if you or someone that you know is experiencing some kind of distress around their sexual identity and their gender identity, experiencing some symptoms of gender dysphoria, even if they necessarily aren't saying the words, or just questioning their gender, help them or yourself, go find a therapist. Go look for a therapist that deals with gender dysphoria, specializes in gender dysphoria, specializes in LGBTQ situations, and start talking about it. And the last thing I'm going to say about therapy is be honest with your therapist. In a future episode, I'm going to talk about what happens when you're not honest with your therapist. Thank you so much for spending this time together with me and helping celebrate the diversity which makes each of us unique. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform and follow us on Twitter at Genderly Podcast. Until next time, be unapologetically you.